Right, here we go. Hey, wait, shake it. This is Sonny. I'm down here at the municipal building with Bob Gross and Mayor Danny Sanchez. I tell you what I tell you, there's a lot of momentum going on here in Fremont. You know, we had the football team doing great. The basketball team just started up. St. Joe's doing great, and here we are. We're going to discuss. This isn't a political post or nothing. We're just going to discuss this. Think Fremont. And you guys started this in 2019, right? This goal.
Yeah, we wrote the plan in 2018 and released it to the public, and it's kind of been our Bible for the city for economic development since for the last 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, it's a lot of good information. I heard a little bit about it. You were talking about it earlier. And so, where do you want to start out?
Well, I guess just to talk a little bit about the Think Fremont plan for all the residents. The Think Fremont plan is a book of information. However, it's also listed on our City of Fremont website. So
this whole thing's on the website?
It's on the website.
Okay.
So everyone can, anyone can go to the website and access that information. We kind of look at this as our Bible here in the city of Fremont, and it really keeps us focused on what we're doing here on economic development in the city.
Okay.
And when people are asking us questions about, well, what is the city doing about economic development?
Yeah.
We always refer them back to the plan.
Yeah.
When I challenged Mr. Gross as the ED director, and we worked together on a team of people to put this together, we described the plan as a SMART plan, and specific, measurable, achievable, reachable, and time sensitive. So we try to look at it as a SMART plan, and a plan's always subject to change, and there's been some things that have changed based off of the goals and how things have gone. So we're excited. There is a lot of positive momentum.
There is a lot of momentum, and you know, this is a lot more than just economics, right?
It is.
There's a lot more involved than just that, right? Because you know, I flipped through it here and I can see a lot of things. You know, just for example, the industry, the housing market. You know, there's all kinds of different commercial, retail, the downtown, you know, lifestyles, education, which is important. I know a lot of people. I was just up in Avon, and they were telling me, the mayor there and the principal were talking about the schools. You know, a lot of people live there, move there just for school. So, and we have some new schools going in.
It's funny looking back. I can't believe it's already been 6 years.
That is true.
Bob's first goal, when I got elected in 2015 and started in 2016, for the first year, Bob and I spent, as we were learning the city, we focused on the school levy and educating the public on the school levy and doing what we could to support that school levy getting passed, because it failed the first time. And we thought that at that time, based off of being out and talking to people, that it was just a lack of information to the public.
Right.
So Bob and I went after hours. We went door to door throughout the city. It was almost back to back, door to door, and after campaigning. But we knew how important it was to see the schools grow, and we used to say, man, just imagine this in 4 years or 5 years, we could have new schools, we could have this, we could have that. And Bob, I don't know about you, but we look back. Here we are, December 3rd. We're going to be taking the tour of the new high school. Mr. Detweiler invited us, but all of that hard work and just getting out and working with other people in the community has helped that come to fruition. And I guess I'll turn it over to Bob. Bob gave a presentation to City Council the other day, and we want to get some of that information out.
Yeah, so thank you for your time. Thank you for tuning in to kind of listen to us as we provide an update. 18, we went and gathered information, had a series of public meetings to help write our plan. Wrote our plan, and it's a little bit of a different plan. A lot of communities have large, comprehensive plans, and they turn out to be reference books, historical reference books we go back and check things with. We took a little bit different approach. We want a marketable plan. We want to sell Fremont to investors, to the community, that, hey, we're heading somewhere.
Right.
And here's where we're heading. And that's really the goals and the plan. This is a plan that we think makes Fremont better. And so we wrote the plan, and now we're executing the plan. And we're 30% of the way through the plan. And so that was the presentation I gave to council just last week. And because not everybody tunes into City Council, we just definitely want to get our message out to the public. And so if this is a good time, I'll start going through the slides. So if you can see on the screen behind us here, I'm just going to show you our PowerPoint. So we talked about it. It's a 10-year plan starting in 19, so we're coming to the end of year 3 or 30% of the way through the plan. These are the chapters: growth, specifically population growth, housing, industry, commercial, retail, downtown, lifestyle, education, health and wellness, and into the growth. And people wonder, why is population growth so important? Population's growth is important for workforce, and the more people that are here, the more workforce we have, the more likelihood it is to attract investors, because investors look at other investors and say, hey, there's a reason those companies are investing in that community. Maybe it's profitable, so I'd explore investing in that community as well. And so one domino leads to another domino. And so just real broad numbers, we're using the U.S. Census data. So in 2010, we were a community of 16,300, and in 2020, we're down 458 people. And so that's a little concerning. However, I bring your attention down to the last sentence there is, even though in a 10-year time span, we're down 458 people, in the last 2 years, we're up 13 people. So, and ironically, in 2019 is the first year of this plan in which we wanted to grow our community, and we're already seeing some evidence that the things we're doing are working, and we need to just kind of continue that. How do we compare? And so the city of Fremont is a decline of 2.6, but Sandusky County is 3.3, and the state of Ohio is a 2.2% increase. Now, that sounds concerning, but as Dan Henning has brought up, you can interpret statistics a lot of different ways. And I would say that there are communities, mostly in and around the Columbus area, that saw a 12% growth. So there are really only 3 or 4 counties out of the 88 counties in the state of Ohio that saw growth. The rest have saw a slight decline, but the large growth in those particular counties in and around the Columbus area kind of leads that number to, kind of throws that number off a little bit. We get into some other data we pulled from the most recent census data. Median household income was $34,000 in 2010. It's up to 41, an almost 21% increase. Number of individuals inside the city limits in Fremont living in poverty were almost 4,100. That's now it's 2,800, so a decline of 1,246 people. So less people in our community living below the poverty threshold, and so we're trending in the right direction. And we think much of those improvements are a result of some things we've done the last few years with housing and jobs.
Yeah, so Bob, with that being said, and we talk about the numbers on the population, what we've learned over the last several years, I think we've kind of known this, as as we move into this next topic here, talk about the housing. We know that in order to increase population, we have to have adequate housing, right?
Yeah.
So we know, Sonny, your wife's a realtor, and I'm sure and speaking with her and just being around, is we don't have enough housing in the city of Fremont. So our goal is to increase population. If we want to increase population, we have to have people or places for people to live. So as we go on to this topic, that's one of our goals is to increase housing, which would ultimately increase population, and we've done that. We started from the beginning on that, and the first thing that we did is we expanded our CRA, our Community Reinvestment Area, and that's been hugely successful in the city. And I think, Bob, I'll let you get into this a little bit, but I think that when I came in office, we only had 3 people. Is that right? Was there only 3? 2? So we only had 2 people that had Community Reinvestment Area that were taking advantage of that. And before Bob gets into that, basically what that CRA stands for is it's a property tax abatement. So for any person that is doing any new construction inside the city of Fremont, that means whether it's if you're building a new home, if you're building a new industrial park or a new factory, or even a commercial store, if you're doing any new build, there's a 15-year property tax abatement. So for example, if you're building a house, for simple math, and let's just say you buy a lot, for, let's just say a half quarter acre lot for $10,000, and you build a new home and your home's worth $150,000, you're only paying property taxes on the assessed land value, that $5,000, for up to 15 years. So that can make the difference of,
Makes
$150,
money saver, yeah.
$150 a month on a mortgage
Oh,
payment,
yeah.
right? And some may argue, well, they don't have to pay property taxes. No, they're still paying property taxes. They're paying on what that land is today, and if we don't offer incentives, that empty lot's going to maintain to be an empty lot. And we know that in order to do something to entice people, we need to offer some type of tax incentives. And so that was the first thing that we did, and I think we've seen a lot of success in that, Bob. I know from your role and as an economic developer, if you could talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so the CRA, Community Reinvestment Area, is an abatement on the increased value or taxable value of the property. The idea was these were created in the city of Fremont in the mid-'80s. There was a small area of a couple blocks downtown and then out on 5th Street. Basically what we've done is we've expanded them to be citywide so that everybody could, within the city limits, can utilize them to spur some growth and development. And we didn't, we thought it would be successful. We didn't think it would be as successful as it was to attract developers here, and so it's one of the tools in the toolbox. I guess I kind of want to share a little bit of a story. We can get all technical, but I like stories along the way. And so I remember as we were out trying to talk to investors, I met a housing developer from Cleveland, got him to come to Fremont, talking to him, showed him different sites to potentially build new housing, and because the Cleveland market's kind of saturated, and he's exploring other communities. And I showed him, talked to him about the CRA. He says, Bob, this is great. I'm very familiar with CRAs. I don't go to a community and build anything without a CRA or some tax incentive. He said, but what you need to get is a housing study. I don't go and spend millions of dollars invest in new housing without knowing the market. And so based off that and coming back and talking to other business leaders and the real estate agents here in the community, and the lenders, let's get a housing study. So we contracted with DeSalvo Development out of Columbus, and they have gone to other communities, Tiffin, Findlay, Bryan, Ohio, just to name a few, where they've done housing studies, and to really diagnose the problem. I think we all are kind of theorizing we need housing, but we don't know what type of housing or what price point, and this housing study answered all these questions. And so this housing study and putting it in the hands of housing developers, putting it into the hands of lenders who feel comfortable to lend money to developers to build these, has kind of led to many of these projects and really helped us diagnose and start to address several of our housing projects. And so I'll transition that into what are our housing development projects that we've been able to get off the ground. And so the first one is Blue Heron on Fangboner. This is a senior housing development. You may see it as you go shopping out on 53. 20 units there to be available in the spring of 2022. About a 1,200 square foot, 2-bedroom, 2-bath attached car garage. You can go to their website, blueheronvillas.com, to see the artist renderings. Speaking to the developer, already has 2 of them rented. Somebody, they have the 2 that are already rented. This thing's not even built. There's not one done yet. Said, we're older. We want to downsize from our larger home. We'll sign the paperwork now. You call us when we're ready or when we're close to being ready. We'll put our house on the market when we're ready to go. So before you even have shingles on the roof, you've got a couple of them already occupied. So there's 20 units there. I mentioned this to council the other night. We're going to add up the next several slides as we go along. So then you've got Meadow Creek, which is on Smith Road across from Grace Community Church. 7 new houses completed back there in 2021. And here's a couple pictures of a couple that have gotten completed and some that are in the beginning phases. We'll move quickly here. Fairway Vistas out behind the country club. 4 new homes, 3 of them completed. One is probably 75% completed in that neighborhood, and I just got word that another lot was bought and plans are being made for a 5th one to be built, and I think there are other lots I think on the verge of being sold. So there's 4 new homes there. Sunset Meadows, so that's the new subdivision where the old Portman Orchard is. 16 homes in there now. A couple of them are completed, and a couple of them have people living in. Some are near completion. Some of them are getting started. This is just phase one of that housing development. The full scope of that plan is for 138 homes to be built back in that subdivision in multiple phases.
And I think that's important to talk about, just because these houses are all on the east side of town.
Right.
You know,
Yeah,
so
good point.
So as over the last several years, as we've tried to develop multiple areas of the city, some of the residents have said, hey, what about the east side of town, right? We need a grocery store, we need this. So a lot of these new homes are on the east side of town, which we hope will increase the population growth on the east side of town here in Fremont.
And then lastly, there are 2 individual homes that have been built in what they call infills, an empty lot in various neighborhoods, and they're available and been purchased. And so as we add those numbers up, 49 new homes, some completed, some at least started, but in 2021, 49 new homes at least got started with construction, and about 23, 24 are done with construction in 2021. And I went back all the way to 1990. Could not find a year where there were more than 20 homes built. In 2009, in the previous slide in Meadow Creek, they built 20 homes back there in the 2009 range. And so these 49 new homes are the most homes built in the city of Fremont. And I probably could date it even further back. I stopped myself at 1990, but at least in the last 30 years, this is the most homes ever built in the city of Fremont, at least within the last 30 years.
Right, and I credit that to the CRA, because that's been, we've had a lot of phone calls on that, and there's a lot of work with that, with a lot of the work that we're doing with that, the paperwork and things like that. But I think something else to talk about, Bob, is as we're talking about housing, is for the community is there's questions I've asked. Well, what about these empty vacant homes in the city?
Right,
These
yeah,
ones that are just kind of sitting
yeah.
out there, right? So we tore down houses last year. We plan on tearing down more houses this year. But one of the things that we're doing is we're working with the land bank. Not every house should be torn down. So with that CRA, we've worked with developers with that CRA, and that CRA also goes to rehab, not only in new construction, but for the rehab, you have to qualify on what you can and can't do, but the tax abatement's for 12 years instead of 15 years. So if there's residents out there that, or folks that are looking at flipping houses or doing things like that, reach out to myself or Bob Gross here in the city of Fremont, because there's incentives that we have here in the city to help you with. And not only that, we're working with the land bank to try to acquire some of these homes. And the goal is to get these homes rehabbed and repurposed to fill in some of these neighborhoods that have the blighted look, and we want to do what we can to clean those neighborhoods up. In the meantime, the city has we have a new code enforcer, and she's actively out working, and I've put an emphasis on trying to clean up on some of the properties, on the vacant properties.
I see them out there, yeah.
What we've learned here is a lot of people that own these properties don't actually live here in our city anymore.
Yeah, that's true.
They've acquired these properties through death or death in the family or something like that, and they may live out of state, so they're not necessarily here to care for the homes. Unfortunately, we're going to have to use some enforcement and use what we can in our city ordinances to make sure that we still hold those property owners accountable for the properties that are just vacant. We understand that, times are tough for people, and we're not looking to just come inside every house because there's some issue with the home. Our goal is to work with the community, work with the residents, but at the same time, we have to make sure that we have safe neighborhoods, and we don't want rodents and things like that in the neighborhoods, especially for the mailmen when they're out there doing that kind of stuff. So.
Yeah.
And as we finish up kind of the housing section, the one thing I wanted to point out is, with every new house that's built, even if it's a Fremont family moving from one house to another home, that still frees up a home for somebody else. So the question was asked to me in City Council, how many of these new homes or people are from outside the community versus a population shift within and that's really hard to track, but I do know that there are some that are from outside the community, and some, and I don't know the specific numbers, that are here. But even that's good, right? That's, like, hey, a young couple probably can't afford a $200,000 new condo, new house, but they can afford the $120,000 home, and they're a little bit younger, or maybe they want some rehab projects, and so just allowing those homes to continue to be recycled and flipped and maintained and cared for really, once again, helps our community. So,
and I think as we segue into the industry, the next topic, we talk about the retention and expansion. Well, that kind of holds true to housing, right? We want to retain our residents that we have here and make sure that we keep them, but also expand by bringing, people from the outside into the community, which would ultimately help the goal of the population growth. So.
Right, and so we've got our list of goals here, and we'll quickly go through them. But a big part of what I do is business retention and expansion visits. I work with the county and Beth Hannum out of Sandusky County Economic Development and Regional Growth Partnerships and Ohio Means Jobs, and we get into these companies and at least once a year, if not more, and check with them. Hey, where are you at? What can we do to help you be successful? And many times it's, hey, we've added a production line, we need workforce. Sometimes it's simple as far as turn lanes and access to shipping yards. And so you can see on this slide, these are the different businesses I've visited over the course of this year to kind of make sure that we stay in close contact. I know before Mayor Sanchez took over and we started this practice of getting in there, several of these larger employers in our community said, boy, we haven't really seen anybody from the city for a few years. That's nice that you guys are checking in with us and seeing how we're doing. And because of our working relationship with a lot of these companies, we've been able to help them. And you can see that, like for example, the big one that pops out in my mind is Bark Creek Industrial Park and the expansion out at Quality Steel. And there's a lot of those companies that have been successful in expanding their operations.
And vice versa, they've helped us on different community events and things downtown. I know that the public can't see the slide, but just for, as you're looking back here, you probably can't read, but there's been over 30 visits to 30 different manufacturers and businesses inside the city that Mr. Gross in the city, and I've been on some of these trips with him that, we've gotten out and talked to these businesses in the community. So that's important to talk about.
And the next slide, this is key because I get asked this question like, Bob, can't you go get a company to move to Fremont and pay really well well, yeah, those are hard to do. Those only happen a handful of times throughout the entire state, and it's pretty selective when those happen. And not that we aren't open to that, not that we aren't doing that. Right. I mean, there's evidence of that in 2020 when the International Cushing Company occupied the old Fremont Plastics building and brought 75 jobs here from Indiana. But where we've had the most success is if you took three manufacturers, three of our larger employers, and they added a production line and where they added 20 jobs, well, that's 60 jobs added to our community, which is equivalent to the average number of jobs brought in by a new manufacturer from outside your community. And so that is one area of business retention and expansion that often gets overlooked. A community has way more success with customer service and good relationships with your existing businesses and finding ways to help them be successful and grow and expanding their workforce rather than recruiting from outside the community. Not that those you don't do that, but this is where you're more successful. And I think back to, maybe the general public doesn't know this, but Crown Battery at one point, their operations were where the Garrison restaurant is now. Think back 100 years ago, Crown Battery maybe employing 10 people in a small building in downtown, and now they're one of our largest employers in our community and does a lot of great things in our community. And so you just never know where businesses are going to grow and end up. We get into the, so one of the things we talk about, I don't know if Mayor, you want to jump in, and the Fremont Development Corp, most communities have a private and non-profit development group that helps them. The Fremont Development Corp is not new, but it did go through a name change. So in the early 90s, a group of business leaders formed the Greater Fremont Industrial Park That was the nonprofit group that led to the Bark Creek Industrial Park and led to more than 700 jobs to this day back into that park. And so we at the city, we've kind of kicked the dust off that group and reformed it and renamed it, and we're utilizing that group to just kind of repeat what the city did in the early 90s and look for some new industrial space.
Yeah, so no, Bob, I don't think we even really knew about that at first. You know, when we were doing this homework on looking at bringing a new industrial park to the community, we just, again, by going out and talking to different people and asking questions from the industry leaders in the community, Bob and I discovered that this group had been in existence. We reached out to local attorney Tom Ballas, who had served, had some working knowledge of that board. And
Dad served on it too.
Dad served on it. You know, Tom's been a great asset to the city. Tom Ballas, local attorney here, and he says, yeah, guys, you know, I know about this. I can help you with this. And what we did is we went out and we basically brought the board back to life. But what I know is that you're only, I say this a lot, but it's true. You know, you're only as successful as people you surround yourself with.
Right.
So we reached out. We have great relationships with ProMedica and Pam Johnson, former CEO, and she's still with ProMedica. Pam is a member of the board. We have the president of Mosher Construction that's a member. A representative from Fremont Credit Union, and also Fremont Federal Credit Union, and also Crone Colonial Bank and Downtown Fremont Inc., and local developer Tom Kern, who serves on the board. And the reason why we picked these people is because these are the people that know the ins and outs of the industrial economic development, the financing, and all of that. You know, so these are people that we knew that had been very successful in our community, that could help give us advice and help kind of lead that attraction of new economic development. And we can't get too far into the weeds over here today, but I will tell you that we do have options out there on some different properties, and our goal, is if you read this plan, our goal is to bring a new industrial park to this community, and we're going to do that. You know, so we feel real confident in the way that's going. And I'm hopeful, Sonny, that we have some breaking news fairly soon. Hopefully sooner than later. We've had some great conversations with our commissioners and our Economic Development Corporation team, and I'm hopeful that we have some news later. I know the next slide is commercial and retail. I can just touch on that a little bit.
Yep. Commercial retail. I'll turn to this slide here.
So a lot of questions we get asked is, what about these different restaurants and things like that. So just for the community, so for them to understand the way that commercial and retail operates is these companies really, they do their own studies on communities, and they look at travel studies, they look at population, and they kind of already know where they want to be. And our job really is to help make that process easier. And I think that we've done that. You know, so we've seen, Dunkin' Donuts, Chipotle, Dollar Tree. There's a new Big B coffee come in. And then out at the Peebles building, there's a big announcement coming on that soon. Gosh, I want to say it now. But there's a new retail store that is planning on coming. There's not ink on paper yet, so that's why I can't say it.
That's what I can't say.
So, but there is a new retail store. I want to give Bob credit. Bob and I met with a developer from Mississippi. We brought him up here and took him out to lunch and wined him and dined him. And this guy says, "I've never been treated no better." And I got stores all over the place, and we're really excited about that.
Great.
Because and sometimes you get excited. You want to get this information out. But no deal is done until it's done, right? So, go ahead, Bob.
Well, the mayor brings up a good point. When you're in these conversations, you learn, hey, it's not our building, it's not our business, it's not our project, and nobody signed anything yet. But they're due to sign it in a week or two, and we want to talk about it because we think it's like something the community will really want. Right. And so sometimes it's really hard to bite our tongue, but we got to, and inevitably it happens. And so I looked through some of these on this list, like Chipotle. I knew for a year Chipotle was coming. But with COVID, it set the project back. And some language and some contracts. And so I had to bite my tongue for a year that Chipotle was coming to Fremont before they went out there and started pushing dirt. I think the mayor alluded to it, and it's, it's not as simple as, hey, why doesn't the city just go pick up one of these stores? While we call and seek and recruit and try to provide good customer service, but I shared this story with council the other day, and it goes to the Dollar General on the east side. They contracted with a third-party developer to build it and all that stuff. And so in talking to them, the developer said, we've researched Fremont, and there was a map on the table, and he says, we have to be within 2 blocks of this intersection. And he put his finger on the intersection of State Street and 5th Street.
Okay.
Our metrics, our research department said 2 blocks within this intersection. So as the conversation unfolded, I said, well, what about going down the street to the empty Great Scott building? There's a building right there. If the building already exists, maybe you could save some money rehabbing it. The guy said, no, that's too far. That's 4 blocks. 2 blocks from this intersection. So then we talked about other locations. Hey, what about this and what about this? No, this is where we're going to be. And he just brought 2 times. He brought me back, we're going to be within 2 blocks. If we have to buy houses, knock something down, this is where we're going. And so they knew where they wanted to be, and their research indicated 7,000 people within 5 minutes of that intersection. And so their business is predicated on volume of people within close proximity of their storefront. So
ironically, the Dollar Tree ends up going over to the old Great Scott building.
Yeah,
right?
and then ironically, Dollar Tree goes there.
That's how that worked out, right?
Yeah.
So we didn't. Sometimes we can't. I mean, we don't control where some of these commercial developments take place.
And before we get to the downtown Fremont stuff, similar, I've had the conversation, Bob, you gotta need to get more stuff, to come down to State Street or get more stuff to the east side. And so, believe me, we're trying. We have
And
those
it's happening.
conversations.
It's happening.
And it's happening.
It is happening.
But back to the corporate America, like Bob, if we come to Fremont, I've had we're only going out on 53. Our competition's out there. The the traffic pattern. So
and I think
we're
that
trying.
we're starting to see the trend though with the population growth on the east side, and I know one of the questions we'll just answer that question now that was asked at the council meeting is, well, what about an east side grocery store? So
okay.
So we can just talk about that briefly. So Bob and I have had conversations with many different grocery retail chains. And we are continuously seeking the Eastside Kroger building for a possible grocery store to come there. And we're telling them, hey, listen, we have these houses being built. We have the data that thinks that we can have you be supported, basically, on the store. But the truth of the matter is, right now, they just still aren't interested. I mean, they don't feel we have, with Walmart and Aldi's and the other Krogers in town, they just still don't think that we have enough